Welcome everybody to Monday night, or no, it's Monday afternoon, isn't it, Bill? I'm thinking Monday night. I'm used to Sunday Night Live, so this is Monday. My guest with me today is Bill Salus, and we're going to have a great time today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going to take your questions live here in just a few minutes. Bill, great to have you here.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be back.
This is going to be fantastic. So last time you ruffled a few feathers when you were talking about the 144,000 virgins and Daniel and chapter 11. We're going to get to that, the 144,000 Jewish virgins during the tribulation period. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain some things there. And with Daniel chapter 11, Revelation chapter 14. Also, Bill, you're known as the Psalm 83 expert, but in my email inbox, I have people that disagreed with you. Can you believe it?
I can believe it. I've got no shortage of objectors.
Yeah. So I have a lot of things I'm going to throw out your way if we have enough time, including I had somebody the other day ask on one of the live things we were doing about the eastern leg and the western leg of the Roman Empire, the revived Roman Empire. When we're looking at it, I take the position that the revived Roman Empire that's coming is going to be the Western Roman Empire, not out of the eastern leg, which was in formerly Constantinople, now known as Istanbul. But there's a lot of people that believe that this revived Roman Empire is going to be coming from the Muslim world. So if we have enough time, we're going to go there too. And then also I'm going to throw another one we're going to try to get to, if we have enough time, is Daniel chapter 2, where you have the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, and he sees it. Daniel gives him the interpretation, and you have this the clay that are, the feet that are made of clay and iron. You have the toes, and then it says, interesting in there, they mingle with the seed of men. And you have this strange phrase that's right in the middle of it, and I know that we have some friends that have some ideas on that. So if we have enough time, I'm even going to go there. But I'm going to stick with right now what I believe you are extremely well-educated on is regarding some of the things going on in the Mideast. So, and we've also titled this the Mideast War, It's Coming. And so we're going to be talking about that because things are heating up over there between Israel and Iran and everybody else. So, Bill, can you walk us through, give us a brief summary of the JCPOA? It's from, so Trump essentially removed us out of that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Give all of our viewers a brief summary on this. So help us all to understand. I think it'll help everybody understand what the problem is and where this is going.
Yeah, I think that's good because really the JCPOA is the political attempt to tone Iran down and keep them away from having a nuclear weapon, which they're on a fast pace to do. They had 6 rounds of talks in Vienna attempting to reinstate that JCPOA. That was between April and June. They were called off and stalled for the elections in Iran where Ibrahim Raisi became the president. And so they decided to come back together, and just recently, past couple of days, they met again for the 7th round. On December 2nd, the day before, and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said he was not optimistic that the talks in Vienna would result in a nuclear agreement. After a couple of days later, he said they're not serious and the talks are failing. And so it's important to understand why the JCPOA has been implemented, the history of it, I think, and why Israel is very concerned about whether it's going to be rolled back to what it was supposed to have been in 2015 when it was implemented, or if Iran's going to continue to go forward. They're doing things right now in breach of that JCPOA that are significant since Trump backed out. So let's just do a quick history on it and why it came into being. In January of 2012, the then Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta said that Iran was just 1 year away from producing a nuclear weapon. That created all kinds of concerns with Israel and the international community. So in April of that year, 2012, the JCPOA group with the P5+1, that would be Russia, China, France, UK, USA, and +1 is Germany. They got together and decided they wanted to try to have a treaty with Iran. And 3 years later, in July of 2015, they finally agreed to this JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action plan. So it took them 3 years of negotiating to put this together. Then in January of 2016, President Obama signed an executive order revoking sanctions on Iran. So Iran had no sanctions at that point to speak of. Then in May of 2018, Trump fulfilled one of his campaign promises, and he backed the U.S. out of the JCPOA. And then in November of that same year, Trump reintroduced very stiff sanctions upon Iran. And that's, of course, what Iran wants to get rid of right now. In those first 6 rounds of talks, Iran managed to say, we want the sanctions gone, but they didn't say they'd roll back to any of the initial requirements they had in 2015. So then in November 2020, the BBC, now this is after Trump has already got the U.S. out of it, the BBC News reports that Iran has now more than 12 times the amount of enriched uranium permitted under the JCPOA. So you can see Iran was moving rapidly in violation of the JCPOA. They used Trump backing out as an excuse to continue forward to accelerate their nuclear program. Then in March of 2021, China, who's a member of the P5+1, agreed to invest $400 billion in Iran over a 25-year period in exchange for a steady supply of oil to fuel its burgeoning economy. And in the interim, Russia, another member of the P5+1, contracted with Iran to build 2 more nuclear reactors in the Bashar province. Bashar 1 is already existing. Bashar 2 and Bashar 3 are coming forward, and they'll be done by 2026. And that's an important area to watch prophetically. We'll probably talk about that in the program. That Bashar area is where the ancient territory of Elam was, and in Jeremiah chapter 49 has a prophecy about, appears to be a nuclear disaster in that territory. So then in June 2021, Iran boasts to have achieved 60%, this is past June, 60% enrichment of uranium, which is the highest level in which Iran has ever enriched uranium. And that's just a short technical step up to a weapons grade 90% enrichment, Tom. So it's very concerning. And in December, just recently this year, in the midst of nuclear talks, Iran announced it's enriching uranium up to 20% in advanced centrifuges at the Fordo facility, which is a total major breach of the JCPOA. And the last thing I would say, even if they were to get back to the JCPOA, which I don't see that as possible, that JCPOA had a sunset clause that after 2031, Iran would have absolutely no restrictions on their nuclear program. So it's one of the reasons Trump said it was a bad deal to go with. And it never introduced any kind of sanctions or concerns about addressing Iran's intercontinental ballistic missiles, which they've been advancing dramatically since Trump backed out.
Yeah. This is the whole thing's just interesting to watch, and the politics are just insane in some regards. It was yesterday I saw that Anthony Blinken said, "Hey, it doesn't appear that Iran is actually serious about this." And I'm thinking, well, do you think? I mean, it's pretty obvious. And then last week, there was this article appeared out of the Jerusalem Post, but it was all over the news. A lot of the people over the Mideast were reporting on it also. The Jerusalem Post said it this way: is third sabotage the charm at Iran's Natanz nuclear facility? Looking at what's going on there, Iran was saying that. I'm sure you have some thoughts on what happened with that. And then also, as you look into certain prophecies that lead you to believe there is going to be an attack on Iran's nuclear capabilities eventually is going to happen. So when you look at this, what happened just the other day with this, Iran is saying, well, no, we were just doing a drill or whatever it wasn't really an attack. But everything else seems to point to, no, Mossad has something to do with this. I even read that some Iranian scientists were involved with helping the problem be exposed with Natanz and this thing that happened, this attack.
Yeah, even before Leon Panetta, started in 2012 with that concern about Iran having a nuclear weapon within a year, Israel was already concerned about Iran's nuclear program. They were doing cyber attacks. The Stuxnet virus really hurt Iran's computers and things. Then around that time, that was in 2010-ish, 2011, around that time, they assassinated, I think it was around 4 nuclear scientists at that time. And then, of course, they've tried other covert things, like, for instance, one of the head of nuclear scientists was recently assassinated. I forget his name off the top of my head. That wasn't too long ago. But at some point, though, Tom, and then there was a big explosion in Natanz nuclear facility. I think it was this past summer. But at some point, the covert actions are going to have to go over because they're not working. Iran is still moving forward. So on October 19th, just recently, Knesset passed a 1.5 billion, 505 billion shekels, $1.5 billion into their budget for a direct military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, that's pretty unprecedented, I think.
Yes.
It's earmarked that's a lot of money earmarked specifically for a direct attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. And it's interesting, a tweet came out from one of the leaders, Shamkhani of Iran, said, instead of allocating $1.5 billion budget for atrocities against Iran, the Zionist regime should focus on providing tens of thousands of billions of dollars to repair the damage that is going to be caused by Iran's shocking response. See, they think that they can go to war with Israel and win with all their proxies. They got Israel surrounded. Remember, they also have Islamic theology that they want to hasten the coming of their Islamic Mahdi, the Messiah, their Mahdi. So, this is, I think at this point in time, Tom, this is not saber rattling. I think we need to be looking at probably a series of prophetic events that could be coming.
Okay, so that's going to bring me to my next point, because I remember back in 2006 giving a prophecy update, and I mentioned back then that Israel was saying that Iran was just a few months away from having the nuclear capabilities. So this conversation has been going on for a long time, a number of years now. But so when we fast forward, sooner or later, this is going to happen. As we look at it right now, it seems like things are definitely escalating in that regard. So you look at it, you have a insight that I do not have. Do you see this happening in the near future? I'm not asking you to put a date on things. I think that'd be foolish, but realistically, how much longer do you think this can go on before Israel does something?
Well, if you're talking about Israel attacking Iran, I presume that's what you're alluding to. I think it's going to happen. I think the prophecy of Jeremiah chapter 49, verses 34 through 39, talks about what we might be seeing coming forward here. It talks about Iran having a disaster and a menu of enemies at the time, which Iran has right now. It doesn't tell us who invades Iran in that particular prophecy, but I suspect it's Israel, and it may be Israel alone. I think at one point we might have considered Trump might actually, when Trump was president, he might have also, with Israel, attacked Iran. It's questionable now at this point whether America would join in with the new Biden administration. And I think Israel's concerned about that, but they're prepared to go it alone. All the headlines coming out of Israel is, we're prepared to attack, we're prepared to go it alone. They've passed that budget we just talked about. So I think it's a very serious time, and I think it could actually be that 2022 is going to be a very apocalyptic year. Not with just one prophecy, but perhaps several prophecies that come out of that one prophecy.
Oh, I think 22 is going to be, people think I remember it was New Year's Eve of 2020. I did my annual prophecy update. And I said, if you think 2020 was rough, I said, watch out for 2021. It's not going to be a joyride, and it hasn't. And I'm looking at 2022, Bill, and I'm thinking, man, you better hold on to your seats for all kinds of things. And just looking specifically at the Israel situation, it's look out for whatever could take place, and I think likely will. I had a question posed to me last night. I know how I answered it. I'd like to hear your answer on it. It was the live question during my Q&A at the end of my message, and somebody had asked, do I think that Iran is baiting the U.S. to get involved in an attack against Iran? I know what I said, but I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on it.
I don't know if I would say that. I mean, they could be. I just think they're a rogue, obnoxious regime that wants to establish a Shiite Islamic caliphate throughout the Middle East. That's why they got their proxies scattered out through Hezbollah in Lebanon and Bashar al-Assad in Syria, the Houthis in Yemen, the Hamas in the Gaza, and now you got some substantial Shiite militias inside of Iraq. And I think of course, they want to get that nuclear weapon so that they can ensure that they can do that, they can have a Middle East Islamic caliphate, and ultimately to take over the world and that sort of thing. I personally just think they're feeling very comfortable within their own military capabilities and their proxies, that they can actually win a war against Israel. They got missiles that can get to Israel in 8 minutes, ICBMs. They got Hezbollah to the north with 150,000 or so missiles, some precision guided in Lebanon, that can hit a bank of targets with 100% accuracy. Syria's got chemical weapons. Hamas can fire 1,000 missiles a day, their estimates in some of the news headlines. So I don't think it would be an advantage for Iran to bait the U.S. to get into the mix. Maybe they feel comfortable that Biden won't. Maybe they feel they can flirt with that. But there's all this tenseness in the Persian Gulf as well, and drones flying all over the place. So, I mean, I just think something's about to break on this.
Yeah, something is. Okay, so your take on Russia, because Russia is letting Israel know, hey, we're going to control Iran. What do you think? I mean, I look at Russia, I look at the Ezekiel 38 prophecies, and I look and go, okay, Russia to me seems to be the one who's in charge over there in the Mideast right now. But I look at it at the same time, why would Russia control Iran unless Russia is trying to win Israel's favor for some reason, guaranteeing peace and safety or something?
Yeah, well, Russia's got some. They don't necessarily want a nuclear Iran creating a major havoc out in the Middle East, and we know at some point Russia and Iran will come together in that Ezekiel 38 coalition. But there's still some. I got a helicopter flying.
Is that what it is? I was going to ask you, what's that noise? So
that's a Russian helicopter. No, I'm just kidding. You know, there's still some variables in that Ezekiel 38 that I don't think are ready to come together just yet. Turkey's.
Yeah,
you know, they're assuming their odds with Iran, et cetera. But we got to watch Russia. But I just think they're trying to be in charge of the Middle East. They've always wanted that, and I think they see a strong foothold in that right now.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this. You have behind you, you have the Pre-Tribulation Prophecies. It's a series that you and I worked on, DVD series. So let's walk through. I'm going to start here. We'll just start here, and then I want you to jump to the rest. And I really want to get to the questions of Daniel chapter 2, Revelation chapter 14, Daniel chapter 11, the 144,000 virgins, the seed mingling with men, and so forth. I want to get to these things. But first of all, let's go here. So the pre-tribulation prophecies. But let me start. Give a scenario. What are the prophetic implications if Israel does attack Iran, and then take us from there?
Right, and I think we can connect it with the Pre-Tribulation Prophecies DVD, 2-disc DVD, prophetic documentary, really well put together with your studio, Tom. And inside of that, a couple hours roughly, I think it is, we have a whole section where we talk about what could be the upcoming series of events, prophetic implications, and dealing with Iran, and how could that burgeon out into more things. So it's inside. What I'm about to say right now is inside of that DVD is the point I'm trying to make. Well, I suspect at some point when the prophecies happen, there'll be a sequence of prophecies, pre-tribulation, that are going to happen rapidly behind one after another. You know, it's been over 70 plus years since Israel became a nation in 1948. So the stage is set for prophecies to happen. And when they happen, I don't believe there'll be another 70-year interval in between each one. So I believe in Jeremiah chapter 49, this is what I'm watching for. This is my opinion. I'm sure there's plenty of people who would disagree, but we put this forward in the DVD. In Jeremiah 49, chapters 34 through 39, there's a prophecy that seems to be dealing with a nuclear disaster inside of Iran. It was written around 596 BC. It was written about 20 years prior to Ezekiel 38 being written, which talked about Persia. And Persia's in Ezekiel 38, Persia is part of Iran. But Jeremiah wrote about Elam, and Elam's not included in Ezekiel's prophecy, but it is and was a part of Iran, modern-day Iran. It's on the hugs the Persian Gulf, and it's the closest area to Israel, where I believe they've got a lot of underground bunkers and missile silos, and they're ready to use those to come against Israel. But there's also a new nuclear reactor there. And if it gets hit, it could create a nuclear disaster. And I think that's what the prophecy is talking about, because it says the Lord gets fiercely angry and he brings about a disaster, and it appears to be dealing with a military invasion. And when the disaster happens, it says that the indigenous population will flee, they'll disperse. It sounds like a humanitarian crisis. It says there'll be no nations where the outcasts of Elam don't go when this disaster happens. And I could see that if Israel attacks Iran, it could start to escalate. And if Iran starts shooting missiles out from that Elam area, Israel's going to have to take those out. And that would be the closest area for Iran to attack. Not to mention they would call on Hezbollah to the north with their 150,000 missiles. They would call on Syria Bashar al-Assad, who would probably be bold enough to use chemical weapons. It'd be an all-out war. And then you might have, obviously, the Hamas would come into this thing, the Shiite militias in Iraq, and maybe even the Houthis. And then I think that would happen is Israel would start taking a hit, because that's just too much for Israel to withstand, all that much missile power. There's estimates that Hezbollah could lob a couple thousand missiles a day, and Hamas could match them with about 1,000 missiles a day. And so Israel at that point, I think, would then take out Damascus in Isaiah 17. They would actually destroy the Arab city, the oldest continuous inhabited city of Damascus, in Isaiah 17:1. And it says in Isaiah 17:9, it's the children of Israel that are responsible for that. In Isaiah 17:14, it says it happens overnight. One night you see Damascus, in the morning you don't see it anymore. But I believe that's where that's going. And the thing that we put on the DVD is, and I've heard you talk about this on your shows, is we believe Israel takes a hit according to Isaiah 17:4-6. It says that the glory of Jacob wanes, his flesh waxes lean. It's a picture of an olive tree that can have up to 500,000 olives on it, a typical olive tree popular in the Middle East. And there's a shaking, only 2 or 3 left in the uppermost branch and 4 or 5 in the fruitful boughs. And I think it's a picture of Isaiah saying that when all this happens, and one of the reasons Israel has to take out Damascus is because it's taking a hit, maybe all the way down through Tel Aviv. And Israel's been doing military drills recently where they're actually evacuating cities in northern Israel for this very thing we're talking about. Hezbollah missiles, chemical weapons coming in, this sort of thing. This is living color. This is going on right now. And I think when that happens, I'll sort of summarize, because I think that would lead ultimately to the final Arab-Israeli conflict that ends the end of all of the Arab-Israeli conflict. So when the Arab cities see Israel's hurt, Damascus has been destroyed, a major Arab city, I think the concerns are going to be, well, what about Beirut, the Arab countries? What about Amman, Jordan? What about Cairo? What about Mecca? And I think those are legitimate concerns, and I think they come together, and that probably would be the final fulfillment of Psalm 83. And they should be concerned because we find out in Jeremiah 49, 1-6, and Zephaniah 2, 8 and 9, that Amman, Jordan actually becomes a desolate mound, much like Damascus. So it looks like, and it says there's an alarm of war in Rabbah of the Ammonites. This is Jeremiah 49, verse 2. It'll become an alarm of war, it'll become a desolate mound, and Israel will take possession of its inheritance. So it looks like Israel takes out Amman, Jordan around the same time. And Ammon and Moab and all of them, they're on Psalm 83. Jordan's in Psalm 83 as well. And I think what happens then is that's when Ezekiel 38 is primed to happen. Israel can dwell securely without walls, bars, nor gates, done away with the Arab threat. And that's preconditions for Ezekiel 38 to happen. And I believe Israel will be very wealthy by that time. Spoils of war, their own inherent resources they're developing. And I think that's when Russia says, let's go get them at that point in Ezekiel 38. That's my scenario.
Yeah. And I do want to point this out to our viewers that that is the scenario you have laid out. You and I have gone through it in the DVD series. It's fascinating. But at the same time, there are people who disagree with your Psalm 83 time frame. There's some that say it's a prayer only. There's some that say these were fulfilled in 1948, which I don't believe. You say it's coming, and quite likely it's going to be coming soon, especially when you look at the different events that are taking place. It's interesting to note, when you look at Ezekiel chapter 38, the territories that are mentioned just happen to, the territories that aren't mentioned just happen to be the ones that you mentioned from Psalm 83. It's like you go, well, why are these immediate neighbors around Israel not mentioned in Ezekiel 38? Which is a fascinating argument to me. And then there's those that place Psalm 83 as being ultimately fulfilled in the millennial kingdom, when Israel will get all of the territory that God has promised to them. And that'll take place at that time, because Israel's never had all of their territory. But it's all fascinating to me to go.
We address those objections. I'm sorry to interrupt. We actually address every one of those objections in the Pre-Tribulation Prophecies prophetic documentary. Yeah,
you do. And it's great. I get to ask you questions and you get to answer. I love that. Okay, I'm going to throw a curveball in there because we're going to get to taking questions here in just a minute. So for everybody watching, we have a lot of people that are in the chat right now. For everybody that's in the chat, get ready to write your questions. Put questions in big letters. I still have a couple more things I want to ask Bill, but I just want you to start thinking about that as soon as I say, hey, we're ready for your questions. Okay, Bill. Last time we had a conversation, and we were talking about the 144,000 virgins from Revelation chapter 7, also mentioned again in Revelation chapter 14. Okay. Now, you said something to the effect of, well, they aren't necessarily virgins, and here's why. Okay, and then you got some pushback on that, and so I'm going to give you an opportunity to bring in Daniel chapter 11. I also want to ask you this. Many people say that in Daniel chapter 11, it's clear that, Daniel chapter 11, it's clear that Antichrist will be a homosexual. Now, and I get people that email me things all the time saying why this is true and why this person is Antichrist and so forth. So I want to give you an opportunity to address both of those things right now. Daniel chapter 11 and the 144,000 virgins from Revelation chapter 7 and 14.
Great. And I appreciate this opportunity. I think that I created confusion, Tom, because you were talking about the 144,000 being virgins, and I had skipped way over to Daniel 11:37 dealing with the Antichrist. And in the process, there were several comments we got that said, I don't believe the 144,000 are literal virgins. So I want to address that as well. But let's start with Daniel 11:37. The context of this is dealing with the Antichrist. And it says in Daniel 11, verse 37, he shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall exalt himself above them all. And he does that, of course, at the midpoint of the tribulation, where he exalts himself above all the gods. You know, the most recent interpretation of what's being said there with the desire of women, dating back to the 1980s, is that it's dealing with his sexual preferences, and some say he'd be a homosexual. That's not the most popular, and it's not the longest standing one. It's relatively recent. When it comes to translating this verse, some commentaries pluck out and interpret the desire of women as if it were a standalone phrase. Yeah. In so doing, they often teach that this verse identifies the Antichrist as either a celibate or homosexual. So here's a couple of quotes from prophecy experts who say that. John MacArthur, and these are noted guys, David Reagan and John MacArthur. John MacArthur says, this could mean that the Antichrist will be a homosexual, but it surely means he has no normal desire or interest in women as one who is celibate. Dr. Reagan says, Daniel indicates that he will most likely be a homosexual. As Daniel puts it, the Antichrist will show no regard for the desire of women. The problem I've got with that particular view is, although the Antichrist may or may not, and by the way, I've written about this and I'm quoting some of this stuff from my book called The Final Prophecies, which deals with the prophecies in the last half of the tribulation. Although the Antichrist may or may not be a homosexual, I don't believe that this verse provides a clue as to his sexual preferences. Rather, it informs the Antichrist will not regard the God of his fathers, the prevailing primary god or goddess desired by the women of his time, nor any other competing god. When translating this verse, it's important to note that the desire of women is sandwiched in between he shall not regard the God of his fathers, nor regard any god. Wherever the next verse talks about the Antichrist will worship a god of war. So why would Daniel teach about the religion of the Antichrist, but insert a quick off-the-wall reference to his sexual orientation? Thus, the true context of Daniel 11:37 is about gods and is about gods, not people. Now, so here's the most popular interpretation of it. I'm actually got a quote here. I think it's from my researchers got it from Barry Stagner on the desire of women. And this is the most popular interpretation. I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with this one. Also, I have another view, but he says he will not regard the God of his own people, nor the desire of women. There's been a lot said about that particular phrase, but the actual more accurate translation is the one desired by women. Many commentators see this being because the one desired by Jewish women was to be the mother of Messiah, and it's simply he will not regard the one desired by women. He will not regard the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, nor his Messiah. So what he's saying, and it's not just him, this is very popular, he's saying that it's dealing with Jewish women, which to me is my first problem is it's not dealing with just Jewish women at the time of the Antichrist. It's dealing probably with all women that are interested in desiring a certain god or goddess. Second, this implies that Mary, who was the mother of Jesus and has already died and gone to heaven, is the one desired by the Jewish women. Yet this prophecy finds fulfillment in the tribulation, which contextually would require that many women, not Jewish women alone, in the tribulation would have a desire for a specific god or goddess. Now, here's the alternative interpretation, Tom, and I appreciate you giving me all this time. because this one I think is the one that's going to hit home with your viewers. When you look at the various other interpretations of what's being said there with the desire of women, the ESV, for instance, says, he shall pay no attention to the gods of his fathers or the one god or goddess beloved by women. I added god or goddess, but the one beloved by women. He shall not pay attention to any other god. He shall magnify himself above them all. The Holman Christian Standard Bible says, he will not show regard for the gods of his fathers, the God longed for by women, or for any other God, because he will magnify himself above all. And then the last version I'll read is the NLT. He will have no respect for the gods of his ancestors, or for the God loved by women, or for any other God. He will boast that he is greater than them all. So the Antichrist is going to blatantly disregard all of the gods or goddesses being worshipped at the time. Now, here's a quote that is really important to read. It's from Bible scholar G.H. Pember, and he explains this interpretation. He says, this is back in 1895. The expression is placed between two nouns, which indubitably refers to concrete gods. It must therefore itself designate some individual deity which is more especially sought after by women. The deity intended can be no other than the many named goddesses of nature who has been worshipped at all times chiefly by women from the earliest ages of our own days, by pagans and apostate Christians of every hand. She is Beltis or Mythia of the Babylonians, Ishtar, the Assyrians, Astarte of the Phoenicians, the Queen of Heaven mentioned by Jeremiah, the Virgin Mary of the Eastern and Western Catholics. This is the goddess of whom we so often hear as Our Lady of Soleil, Our Lady of Lords, to whom it seems there are temples erected even in. So even way back then, he was saying this is a goddess per se. At the time, the harlot world, this is at the time that you have the Antichrist, he will have desolated the harlot world religion by the 10 kings at the midpoint of the tribulation, when Daniel 11:37 finds fulfillment. It'll be desolated, and he will have no regard for the harlot at that point. But in the beginning of the tribulation, he has a high regard for the harlot, because it says in Revelation 17:3, the harlot sits on the beast. Revelation 17:7, the beast carries the harlot to her heights. But after the desolation of the harlot, he will have no regard for her. So I think the thing is here, why does Daniel put a spotlight on the God longed for and beloved by women? Is he giving us a clue that the God receiving worship and adoration by apparently a large following of women could actually be a female goddess? Now, Catholics consider the Blessed Mother a goddess who hears their prayers and intervenes in their lives. Here's one final headline I'll say on this. Millions of Muslims devoted, this is a headline in Worldly News in August 2013. Millions of Muslims devoted to Mary. Every year, millions of Muslims, mostly women, go on pilgrimages to Marian shrines in Egypt, Syria, Portugal, and Lebanon, according to the Asian News. So, I mean, I said a mouthful. I read a lot of quotes and things like that, but I think those are the three views, and I favor the final one, which is it's dealing with the women who are desiring and longing for the goddess at that time, which very well could be the harlot.
Yeah. You did say a mouthful. Thank you very much. And I agree wholeheartedly. People have to look at the context of that passage. It has nothing to do with somebody's sexual preference. And so it doesn't fit there if you just read it. But I get people email me all the time and tell me it does, but it simply doesn't. Okay, I've got to get to start taking some questions. So everybody, if you could start sending your questions, put them in all caps while you're typing those up. Bill, the 144,000 virgins of Revelation 7 or Revelation 14, from last time, do you believe that these are Jewish men that are virgins at the time of their conversion in the tribulation period?
Well, I can't give you a 1-minute answer, but I'll try to make it quicker than the last one. I'm not saying they're not. Okay. They very well could be. But here's the verse in particular, and I write about this in Apocalypse Road, my book. These are the ones who are not defiled with women, and that's important, defiled with women, for they are virgins, part 2 of that verse, and they are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. So you got 3 parts we need to look at there. The word defiled is troubling because it insinuates that women are defiling at that point in time. It's the Greek word means to soil, stain, pollute, or defile. And Merriam-Webster says to make unclean or impure, to make physically unclean, especially unpleasant or contaminating, which implies that all the women in the first half of the tribulation, which when these 144,000 witnesses are on the scene, are impure, unclean, unpleasant, and contaminating, and they need to stay away from them. That's one of the concerns or implications it might have. The word virgins is parthenos, and it can mean properly a virgin, a woman who has never had sexual relations, a female virgin, etc. But it also figuratively can mean believers when they are pure, chaste, and faithful to Christ, their heavenly bridegroom. And in comparison, we have that same word used in 2 Corinthians 11:2. It says, "For I am jealous for you with godly jealousy, for I have betrothed you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ." So it has a figurative meaning as well, not just a literal virgin meaning. I have a couple of commentaries I'm going to read. They're short.
Make them short. I've got questions I got to get to.
Okay. So these are people who substantiate what I'm saying there. Yes, these could be virgins, by the way, but because like Paul decided, hey, listen, for my ministry, I'm paraphrasing, but for my ministry, it's not good that I get married. But, if you want to, you can get married, and that's God's plan, that sort of thing. So William MacDonald, the Bible's Believer's Bible Commentary. They are described as virgins, those who have not defiled themselves with women. They have kept themselves free from this terrible idolatry and immorality of this period and followed the Lamb in unquestionable obedience and devotion. Jameson Fawcett's Brown's Bible Commentary. In contrast to the apostate church of Babylon, spiritually a harlot, they're not being defiled by women, which means they were not led astray from Christian faithfulness by the tempters who jointly constitute the spiritual harlot. John Gill wrote this way back a long time ago. These are they which are not defiled with women, meaning with the horror of Rome and her harlots, which is the mother of. While the kings and the inhabitants of the earth were drunk with the wine of her fornication or committed idolatry with them, this which is spiritual fornication, and is here meant by being defiled by them, these were free from such pollutions. So I would say these commentaries are basing their interpretation on these 144,000 have kept themselves pure like chaste virgins and have been faithful to Christ and not committed idolatry which has been taking place during that time of the harlot in Revelation 17:2, which is making the inhabitants of the earth and the kings of the earth drunk with idolatry. So I think they're abstaining from it. Yes, they probably are virgins. They probably won't get married. And we could probably look at that literally, but I think it is a figurative thing that these guys are just not following what's going on at that time. They're keeping pure and clean and obedient to Christ. So I think that's another alternative.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, here comes a question for you. What do you think about the Sanhedrin and their temple practices? So, the Sanhedrin was revived? I think it was 15 years ago or something like that over in Israel. And, I'm not sure exactly what their question is here, but I look at this. You think, I'm going to throw it another direction because it appears that since they have the Sanhedrin over in Israel now, whether or not they're official or unofficial, I don't know. All the different arguments there. You have the Temple Mount Institute that's made all these different articles that are necessary for worship. That you and I would both agree that the temple needs to be built prior to the midpoint of the tribulation period. Do you believe that temple being built will be part of the covenant that's confirmed with Antichrist in Daniel chapter 9?
I do, and I think the clue is the other proof text in Isaiah 28, verses 15 through 18, which tells us that this covenant is made in lies and falsehood, an agreement made with death and Sheol because they're concerned about an overflowing scourge. There's three main things with the coming temple. The Jews want to build a temple. They will build one. We know that according to prophecy. One is they think it'll just flow down from heaven, which that's not likely. And especially as they get to the point where the overflowing scourge is coming, they're not going to have the luxury of waiting for that mystical thing. They also think that the Messiah will come because they don't believe Jesus Christ was the Messiah, and he will build a temple. And the time will be of the essence at that point also. That's not going to happen because the Messiah has already come. And then the third point of view, which I believe will prevail, is that we will build a temple and hasten the coming of the Messiah. So when they see the overflowing scourge going on, and I think the Sanhedrin may be part of those scornful rulers of Jerusalem in Isaiah 28:14 that lead the people astray into this false covenant. When they see the overflowing scourge coming, they're going to want the Messiah to come because they believe the Messiah they're longing for. And because they believe when he comes, he will get rid of the harlot world religion and all the problems and the overflowing scourge and whatever else is going on at that time. and he will then usher them into their messianic kingdom. So they think signing a covenant is politically expedient. It's done in lies and falsehood. We don't really want to agree with what we're death and Sheol and what they're doing in the overflowing scourge, but we need to build our temple so the Messiah will come and he'll just get rid of that whole nonsense for us. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay. So let me ask you this on this overflowing scourge from Isaiah chapter 28. I mean, when I look at it, I mean, scourge could be so many different things. It's something that Israel, some type of an agreement that Israel enters into to avoid this thing that seems to be happening. To me, the way it reads, it's happening elsewhere and it's threatening to come to them. You know, when I look at it, what are the possibilities of what a scourge could be when you look at it in your mind at what they want to avoid? Is it an attack from somebody or is it something else?
Well, you want my take on that?
Yeah, as long as you don't get me in trouble, yeah, I want your take on it. I got censored last week, so just be careful with what you say.
Clearly say it's my take on it, and I write about this, and I think it's the last prophecies. The prophecies of the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. The covenant is between Israel and death and Sheol in Isaiah 28:15. That Daniel doesn't tell us who the parties are in Daniel 9:27, but Isaiah does tell us who the parties are, and they're perpetrating an overflowing scourge. They're probably perpetrating, at least Israel feels they can prevent it from coming to their shores. So we say, well, who is the other party? Well, it turns out that death and Sheol is death and Hades. Hades is the Greek word for Sheol. I think is a possibility that they're the fourth horseman, and they've got control over a quarter of the earth to kill, and they're killing a lot of people, maybe even a quarter of the earth, maybe 1 billion plus people. I personally think they have authority over a quarter of the earth to kill, and they're killing a lot of people. They could be killing more than a quarter of the earth. I don't know. But most of the commentators say they're killing a quarter of the earth. Mm-hmm. And among those are the fifth seal saints. Now, it turns out that of the killing campaigns in the end times, you've got the harlot world religion in Revelation 17:6 is drunk with the blood of the saints and the martyrs of Jesus. But she gets taken out of the midpoint of the tribulation by the 10 kings, and the Antichrist starts beheading people who don't take the mark of the beast. So in my estimation, unless death and Hades represents a third killing campaign, and they can't be the white horseman, the Antichrist, because they're the fourth horseman, then it could likely represent the harlot world religion. And she's drunk with the blood of the saints and the martyrs of Jesus. And I think that the Jews are going to say, we don't want her to be drunk with the blood of the saints, the martyrs of Jesus, and the martyrs of the Jews. I think she's killing a lot of Christians at that point in time. And that could be, in my estimation, that could be what they're trying to be concerned about. And Israel has to be dealt with because Ezekiel 38 would have happened. Israel's powerful. Their God has stopped the most formidable advance. Antichrist is in cahoots with the harlot. He would certainly be a political figure that the harlot could come together with, and Israel would trust to come together to broker a covenant. But that harlot world religion is big. It's ecclesiastical Babylon. It's a global world religion. And if that is death and Hades, which I suspect it could be, that's a really powerful event that's going to happen right in the midst of the seals being opened.
And for whatever reason, I think that it's going to be Christians that are going to be blamed. The Christians are coming to Christ at that time. They're going to be blamed for the woes, the scourges, whatever else it is taking place. Hence, you have the fifth seal saints. I think it's going to be, in a sense, almost a free-for-all to go after, for whatever reason, Christians will be blamed for the problems that have been created by the first four horsemen.
Yeah, well, there'll still be. It depends on how you look at the harlot world religion. Some of us believe it's really sort of an apostate church. It becomes a super church. I personally think it's headquartered in Rome with the Vatican, but there's other opinions on that.
Okay, I want to ask you a few more questions. So I think we ran out of time, but I'm going to go over. I hope everybody doesn't mind going over a couple of minutes. So here's this one. This comes from Diana, and she says, here's my question. Could they not just put up a tent in regard to the temple?
Well,
and I'm assuming a tent and then a Holy of Holies or something like that. I think it'll be a temple, but your opinion.
Well, I believe it's going to be a fully constructed temple. I think Revelation 11 shows John measuring the outer court and the inner court and that sort of thing. So I think they're going to build a temple, which I believe they could build in, estimates are maybe as soon as a year, maybe 1-2 years. But they could immediately start sacrificing animals on an altar. They've already been practicing for that ceremony, and until the temple is built, and they can because their goal is going to be to reinstate the Mosaic law, and especially after Ezekiel 30 and 39, It says 3 times they're cleansing the land, which is a ritual requirement of the law. And so they're not going to jump on the Jesus train. In their response, they're going to go back into the Mosaic law, in my estimation.
Yeah. I don't believe the temple, once they get the green light to build it, is going to take very long at all. They aren't going to have all the red tape that you have in America when it comes to building, especially in places like California that are absurd to try and build in. They're not going to have any of that red tape. They're going to have construction crews working 24/7, and I'm pretty confident there's already plans that are drawn up to build it. I don't think it'll take long at all. Okay, I've got to ask this question. Do you believe Babylon in Iraq, its original location, is going to be rebuilt?
I believe it could be rebuilt, but not under the capacity that most of our colleagues would say. They're talking about rebuilt Babylon being the headquarters of Revelation 18, the city, commercial headquarters of the Antichrist. I don't concur with that. I think there's 2 different cities. One is Rome, with the ecclesiastical Babylon. The city sits on 7 hills. I write about this extensively in my Next Prophecies and Last Prophecies book. But my answer to that is no, I don't. I think it's a war-torn area. It's not going to be rebuilt to the levels that it would require for the Antichrist to inhabit it. Then they would point to, well, look, Dubai was built quickly. You know, it could. I mean, so there are people who would argue that particular case. But I think the rebuilt area would be because of Zechariah, what talks about Shinar. I think it's Zechariah 5, where wickedness is taken there and that sort of thing. But I'd lose your listeners unless they read my book, your viewers unless they read the book.
I get it. Well, that's going to bring me to an easier way of doing this. I have a couple of questions I have to ask you. I want to get to the seed of men, the mingling with the seed of men in Genesis chapter 6, because I'm getting that here, and I wanted to ask you about it anyways. I'm going to ask you about the eastern and western leg of the Roman Empire, but before we go there, how can people get a hold of you and your books and so forth?
Well, they can get a hold of me through Prophecy Depot Ministries, and that would be prophecydepot.com. Prophecy Depot, like Home Depot, prophecydepot.com. And most of the stuff is on Amazon as well. But that Pre-Tribulation Prophecies DVD is not on Amazon. So they would have to come until you get your bookstore. They'd have to come to our website. And I highly encourage it. It's $24.95 plus shipping and handling. And it's going to just really bring you up to speed. You know, the thing we did with that DVD, just to make it quick, Tom, is that we let people know. A lot of people in the church think, well, I'm just going to be raptured and I'm not going to see any of the bad stuff. And, you know, listen, there's a whole bunch of, we're pre-tribulation prophecy, rapture believers, Tom, you and I. But there's other things that are going to happen before the tribulation. And we point out there's almost like 20 different things that could happen pre-trib. And the church could be here for 1, 2, maybe all of those. We don't know, because we don't know exactly when Jesus is going to come get us. We may not be here for any of them, but they are coming, and we prove why they're pre-tribulation.
Yep. Yeah, excellent. It'll be an excellent DVD, everybody. I don't have it available in my store because I don't have a store, but you can get it through Bill's and also your books and everything through Prophecy Depot, like Home Depot. Also, I want to encourage you, before we get to the next couple of questions, is go to my website, hopeforourtimes.com. And the reason I ask you to do that is because I was censored last week by YouTube. It was the 3rd time I was taken down in 2021. I don't know how much time I have left with YouTube, but the only way I can really keep in touch with people is by getting on our email list, and then we can send you emails to keep in touch with my schedule or whatever it is, or places that videos that we do will be posted. We do have our own server now, so we're able to post a lot there. We can't do live on our own server yet, but we will be able to do live on our own server probably within another 2 or 3 weeks, but we're making progress. But again, if you go to our website, hopeforourtimes.com, you can get info there. And if you forget how to get a hold of Bill Salus, I can even tell you how to get a hold of Bill Salus if you send us an email. And then I'm going to be at a conference at the end of January with Jeff Kinley and Todd Hampson in Orlando, Florida. That information is also available at hopeforourtimes.com. Okay, ready? Okay,
ready.
Here we go. Daniel chapter 2, there's a dream Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel's interpreting for him. He comes down to the last days empire, the clay, the feet that are made of clay and iron, and they don't adhere to one another. And Daniel says that it's going to be a kingdom that's partly strong and partly weak. That, I believe, is speaking of the final empire. That Revelation chapter 17 also tells us there's going to be 10 kings that give their power and authority to the beast. So, but with that, it says right in the middle of there that they will mingle with the seed of men, and to me it's a strange phrase that's right in the middle of the interpretation of the dream, and then the interpretation of the dream. What is they will mingle with the seed of men? And we can't go too long because we've gone a while this time, Bill. Wow, this is really good. But
well, I think it would be good just for the viewer to get to this quick little connection. Daniel talks about feet in Daniel 2. It doesn't tell us there's 10 toes, but feet means more than 1 foot. And 1 foot has 5 foot toes. The other one has 5 toes. We got 10 toes. 10 toes of Daniel 2 then turned out to be the 10 horns of Daniel 7, verse 7. And Daniel tells us in Daniel 7, verse 24, that these 10 horns are 10 kings. So this is how we make that connection for a little Bible study for the viewers. And these 10 horns show up several times in Revelation 17, verses 3, 7, 12, and 16. And Revelation 17:12 identifies the 10 horns as the 10 kings. So I think you're accurate in saying the toes that you're in question here in Daniel 2 are actually dealing with the end times, the revived Roman Empire with the 10 kings of Revelation 17, who actually desolate the harlot in Revelation 17:16. Now, who are they? It gives the impression that it's someone apart from humans, perhaps not men, right? They're mingling. It's a incohesive union because clay and iron do not mix. And so there's been all kinds of different views on that. Some of them that I find most interesting take us back to the fallen angels and versus the Sethite view in Genesis chapter 6. Could it be that it's taking us back to that period of time when the flood came? Have you heard that theory as well?
I have heard that theory. I get asked about it quite often. I saw a couple of questions come in here in the comments too regarding that same thought process. I know you have a good friend, L.A. Marzulli, that takes things that direction, as did Chuck Missler. But I have other colleagues that just absolutely don't believe that at all. But and a lot more people are talking about it now. There's an interest. And
there's a little bit of a debate between, were these the godly lines of Seth when it talks about the sons of God, the Benai Elohim in Genesis 6, or were they the fallen angels? Because in the book of Job, we have, chapter 1 and chapter 2 talk about, and chapter 13 talks about the son of God, Benai Elohim, being angels. And we could spend time on this. I've got all kinds of notes on this, Tom, depending, but it's one thing to talk about what's this Daniel 2, the mingling going on there, and connecting it all the way to Revelation 17, and then coming back and saying, are we seeing, is it going to be a revisit of the Genesis flood scenario of Genesis 6? And then there's debates on what's really going on there too. So that is actually one of the more confusing verses to me.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? It is. And there's a lot of people that will tell me they have the answer, but that's okay. It's so fascinating because in some of these topics you will have, some of them are I think the closer we get to the tribulation period, the better understanding we will have. I have a lot more clarity to certain prophetic passages now than I did 10 years ago. And things I thought I knew 20 years ago, I now realized, hey, there's a few different directions this could actually go. Some of the things you talk about with Psalm 83, and you look at events right now, it certainly is very intriguing when you start considering these things. And there are different opinions on some of these other details. And I'm going to give you one last one. Here it is. Ready? The eastern leg of the Roman Empire. There are those that say that Antichrist is going to rise up. He's going to be Islamic because it's the eastern leg of the Roman Empire that crushed Jerusalem in 70 AD. It had nothing to do with Rome. I push back against that. I believe it's this revived Roman Empire is coming out of Europe, and I don't believe the Antichrist is going to be Islamic. He's coming out of an eastern leg of the Roman Empire, which would have been headquartered in Constantinople back at that time. But your thoughts on this? Am I wrong?
No, I agree. I believe in a Western, Eurocentric Western Antichrist. I believe Daniel 9:27. It says that he's going to come out of the Antichrist, come out of the people who destroyed the city and the sanctuary, Jerusalem and the temple. Titus Vespasian did that, and with the Roman army. What they say there, and Joe Richardson, I've debated him on this. He's one of the guys that advocate for it, because they have to have it coming out of the eastern leg, especially out of Turkey and things like that. They've got to have an Islamic Antichrist. They said, well, Titus Vespasian had hired a bunch of Arabs. When Rome would take over territory, they turn those people into conscripts and things. But you had to be a Roman citizen to be in the Roman army. I got into a big long article we wrote about that. I don't even know what the link was. I wrote that about 15 years ago. But no, I agree with you, Tom. I believe that he's got to come out of the people that destroyed the city and the sanctuary, and that was the Romans clearly at that time. And it's not, the split did happen, but I still see him as being a Western Eurocentric Antichrist.
Yeah, I do too. Bill, thank you very much for the time today. Listen, everybody, I know we went a little bit long, but that's all right. You guys hung in there. And there were some questions that came in, just so you guys know, that I cannot answer I just can't answer on YouTube. I'll be able to answer more. Let's see. Bill, do you have anything on demand? This person doesn't have a DVD player, like a link.
If you go to prophecywatchers.com, they've got most all my DVDs. You can go on demand and live stream them. Prophecywatchers.com.
Great. Listen, I got one final thing I need to do is I want to thank everybody who sent the super chat during our conversation today. Folks, that is a fantastic blessing to us because, quite frankly, everything we do is by donations, and we had some very generous and very kind people today. By next week, I'll be able to have all the names in front of me, so I'll be able to tell and be able to thank you guys personally for helping us out. And then don't forget, we have the conference coming up in Orlando, Florida, at the end of January. Go to my website, hopeforourtimes.com, so I can stay in touch. Just sign up on the email list. It's absolutely free. It's like subscribing to YouTube. It's free to do that, and so I can keep in touch. And Bill, make sure you check out Bill's website. He is a wealth of information. That's why I like doing things with him, because I get to learn a lot when I do things with him or even read his books. He has great material. God bless you, Bill. I hope that we'll probably be doing something soon enough. And I think you and I need to talk about doing another DVD series.
Sounds great, Tom. I'm all in.
Okay. That'd be great. Okay. Thank you, everybody. God bless you guys.